Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Joe. I'm going to be facilitating this course for you today. And today we're going to be talking about Visio Advanced. In our Visio introduction course, what we ended up creating was a basic flowchart. What I want to start off with today is creating what's known as a cross-functional flowchart. To do this, we're going to use our basic flowchart template right here. And if you don't see that, you can always go into more templates and search for it online. So once you click on basic flowchart, we're then going to use our blank flowchart and click create. Now you'll see right away that we have the option for cross-functional flowchart shape stencils. And if I click on it, this is where we'll find our swim lanes and our separators. This will allow us to separate things by different phases or even different departments that are going to be working on these different flowcharts. So let's say that we're working on a project and we can use some basic flowchart shapes for this. We'll do a start and end, and I'll just put my start right here. And let's say that this is going to be, I don't know, we'll make up the process as we go along. We're going to have a process underneath it. We'll have some sort of process and we'll reshape this. And then we'll have another process. And then we can always duplicate for another one. Then somewhere along the line, we'll have some sort of sub-process. And we'll start to fill all this out in a little bit. We'll have another process. And once again, I could just use Control D to duplicate. Maybe we'll have a decision somewhere. I think that looks good right there. Just going to space this out nicely. And then we'll have a document that we need to access or create. And last but not least, we will duplicate our end. So for these different processes, what we can do is we can start to map these out to different departments and different phases. For instance, maybe there's going to be 3 phases that this project's going to be completed in, and I'm going to have 3 different departments working on this. So I'm just going to move my shapes to wherever I'd like, just so that they feel like they're more aligned. And we'll do something like this. I think this looks great. And next, what I'm going to do is start to name these. So for this first process, what we'll call this is Project Alpha. There we go. And of course, we can always change the size of this and all the other editing tools that we've went over in our Visio introduction video. So I'll just add a size 14 on there. I think that looks great. So what we're going to do now is fill out the rest of this. I'm going to click into the next one, and we'll say for this one, we're going to get permit. And once again, I'll just change everything I need to change here. I'll go with a 14-point font. And then after that, I'm thinking we'll do contact developers. And then last but not least, on this one, we will contact our marketing team. So we could start to get this project marketed. After this, we might have a sub-process where we're building a pricing plan. And once again, I'll just change that to a 14-point. And then we may want to just check in on our developers and marketing team. And I like to just do a double click like this so that I can get our, if we go 1, 2, we get our nice little chat box here. But what we can also do is just go right up top and just change it here as well, whatever works. Down here, we do want a decision point on this, and the decision point is how we want to announce this. So do we want to announce this via Teams or email? And if we decide to do an email, we are going to want to write up an email on this. So once again, I'll just change this to 14 point. There we go. We may want to make this a little bigger just because of the text. And then if we do decide to do email, and I'll just change that to via. If we decide to do email, well, then we'll go up here and we will write out the document. So this will be our demo announcement document. And last but not least, well, we'll have our demo. Now we just have to create our connections, and I'm going to go to my connector tool and I'll create a connection. I want to make this a static connection, so I will be going from point to point. And once again, point to point. And there we go. And then for our announcements, we'll either, if we decide to do email, go to demo announcements, or we're just going to go straight to the demo if we're going to do a quick little Teams announcement. And I think that looks great. Now I'll go back to my pointer tool. I'm just going to switch up this line so it's straight. I might want to switch this line up so it's straight as well. There we go. And I think this looks awesome. But now what we're going to want to do is set up our cross-functional teams, because I have 3 teams working on this: Team A, Team B, and Team C. But I also have this in different phases. So the first thing I'm going to do is go over to my cross-functional flowchart shapes. Now, for this, I'm going to use the vertical lane for the vertical swim lane, and I'm going to click and drag it right here. And I can make it as big as I want. If I wanted to make it a little bigger, you can come over here and click and drag, whatever works for you. And I'm just going to make that a little bigger there. Perfect. And I want to include that line, so perfect. It also includes the title, which is really nice. And now that we have this, I might just make this a little different here. And there we go. Beautiful. And I think that looks nice. Now I'm going to add another swim lane as well. The second one's going to go right next to it. And once again, I want this to capture the rest of them, so I will click away. And then once I click away, I could just click and drag, and I include it like this. And then last but not least, one last swim lane right over here. And then I click away, and then you can resize it. Now what I want to do is I want to start to add more phases. You'll see here that this is all just one phase. I want this to be all different types of phases. So I want this to say, instead of function, I'll double click, and I'll call this one phase 1. I'll then click on the next function, and I'll call this one phase 2. And I'll click on this third one, nice double click, phase 3. Now for these phases, I don't really want it to say phase. I want it to have Team A, Team B, Team C. But I do need to split this up. So I'm going to use what's known as a separator. Now, if you're using a vertical swim lane, you're going to use a vertical separator. And if you're using just a swim lane horizontally, you're going to use the normal separator. So I'll click on vertical separator and click and drag this one right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to, instead of it saying phase, I'm going to call it Team A. So now I know that Team A is going to be dealing with the Project Alpha discussion, the building pricing plan, and then that's it. We'll then go into another separator, and I'll add it between these two right here. And we'll just say that, let's go all the way over here. Let's add contact developers. And this is going to be my Team B. So Team B is going to be working on all these different flows. Now I'll do the last separator if I needed to, But since it's already here, all I have to do is double click and then put Team C. And now we have everything organized. So for phase 1, I have Team A working on the idea of Project Alpha. I have Team B getting the permits and contacting developers, while my Team C contact the marketing team. Then when we switch over to phase 2, Team A will be building out a pricing plan, and Team B will be checking in on the marketing and development, and then Team C will make that decision if they're going to announce via Teams or email. Once we get into phase 3, Team A is fully done with this project. Team B is going to be announcing the demo, and then of course, if we decide to send out this document, or if we don't, we can skip into that. Now I do want to add one more connector, just from here, demo, and there we go. I may also want to add the text here as well to decide what is the decision. Is this the teams or is this the teams? So I'm going to click on text, and I'm going to enter the text here. I'm just going to put via teams, and you can make that a little bigger if you like. I'll do a 14 point, and then once I'm done, I can use my pointer tool to actually take this and drag it down here, because this is where it's going to live. Beautiful. And then I'll do another one. I'm going to put it here, and I'm going to say via email. And once again, you can double click, make this a little bigger. I'll do 14 point, and then I'll click on my pointer tool and just click and drag it to the middle here. And look at that. This is looking great. Of course, we could change the colors, as I always like to do. I could change one color or both at the same time. And then I can just do a quick fill. Maybe I'll make those ones, let's do a red for those. For all the processes, I'm going to do a lighter blue. Something like that. That looks great. For the sub-process, let's do a nice green. For the announcements, I'll do a purple. And then for the demo, I'll do demo announcement in yellow. You can also change these shapes as well if you like, and fill them with different colors. You can do a nice light gray. Just click on each one. Maybe I want to change this to a different color as well. You're more than welcome to in each of these as well. And there we go. And you might just want to change that text, of course, and change it to a different color. And there we go. So you can have really a lot of customization to this and make it look any way that you like. So take a moment, try this out on your own, and when we come back, we're going to talk about building a network diagram. What we're going to be talking about next is creating a network diagram. Now, this network diagram will show the hierarchical network design using WLANs and also internetworking. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a new file. And I'm actually going to just simply search for a network diagram. You'll also see here in the suggested search that we have network. If we give that a click, it's going to search thousands of our templates, and we can go here and choose which one we want. Now, I'm just going to simply use a basic diagram. So I'll go to basic network diagram, give it a click, and then we can either use a basic network diagram or we can use a small/medium business network diagram. Whichever one you like to use, you're more than welcome to. They just have different icon designs. Now for me, you can even just start from scratch, which I'm going to do. And then I'll click create. Now the first thing I'm going to do is the insecure route. So I want to be able to create a box and then start to put different things in there. You'll see we have access to networks, we have computer monitors, and we have quick shapes, or even more shapes that we can add. So I do want to just add some basic shapes here. So I will go to more shapes, and then I'll go to general and basic shapes. This is where I can start to create those borders, and I'm going to click and drag the square over here. I'll make that a little bigger here, just like that. I think that looks good. I don't want to fill, so I am going to turn the fill off. No fill. But I do want to make sure I can see that line, so I'm going to do that. And there we go. We have a nice little light box. Now inside this box, I do want to have the internet. I'm going to go to network, and I'm going to search for anything that helps me to distinguish that this is the internet that we're connecting to. And we can use whatever we like, whether we want to do wireless access point, or maybe we want to create a cloud. So I can search for cloud, and there we go. We see the cloud right here. And you'll also notice that it's under network location. So you can just see through all these different things. We have symbols, we have calendar shapes, but I'm going to use this one and put it right here. And then what I can do is just insert a text box. And the text box is going to say internet, just so that I have some sort of labeling system here. I'll put internet. And there we go. Now I can go back to home, grab my pointer tool, and click and drag it wherever I like. And I'll put it right there. Now the next thing that I want to do is group these together. I think it's important to do this so that I know this is one object. I can do that by clicking on this one, holding the control key, clicking on internet, and then we'll go to group under the arrangement group, give it a click, and click group. So now it's all one. So even when I move this, I can move it around as one piece. Next up, I do want to search for some sort of like business building so that I can represent the building. And once again, you can either look here at some of your networks, or you can just search for building. And there we go, building. And it's under, once again, network locations. And I'll give that a click here. So now I'm going to make a connection from our internet to our actual building. And I may also want to just put in here that this is an insecure network space. So I'm going to add another insert, a text box, and then I'll add it right here. And I'll just put insecure. You can also make this a little bigger. And I'll just go with like a 30 point. I think that looks good. And now I can make my connections by going to the connector tool and connecting this straight to this. And there we go. Looks perfect. Now, if you did want to connect this tool, maybe you want to move it over a little bit, you're more than welcome to, just so that it looks a little nicer. It's not just coming straight from the middle. And I think that looks great the way it is. The next thing we need to do is now create the secured route. So in order to do that, we're going to actually create the router and the firewall right here. So once again, there's different things you can use for the shapes, and you'll see I have a firewall here and I have a router design. So I'm going to use both of these. I'll just click my router, put it here, and I'll take my firewall and I'll put it here. Now I do want my firewall behind the router, so I will click on bring front or send back, and I'm going to actually send this backwards so that my router's on top of my firewall. The next thing I'm going to do is create another shape. I'm going to actually just duplicate this one so it saves us some time. And I'll put that right here. I think that looks great. And now I can start to add my secured networks. And I like to do a lot of duplication because it's a lot easier than resizing everything. And I'll put secured instead. The next thing I'm going to do is add another router. So I will just click on this router, duplicate it, and add it right here. I'll add a couple more routers as well, 3 more. So I'll do Control D, Control D, Control D, and I'll move those to wherever I like. And I'm going to go here, here, and probably one here. So I may want to make this a little bigger. And there we go. And I think that looks great. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the server, and then I'll create the computers as well. So I can take the server icon, bring it over here, And then I'm going to take the computers, and I'll just find the computers here. Or once again, we can just go over to our shapes, look at the different stencils we have, like computers and monitors, and I can use these. And I'll just bring out a couple of them here. And you know what? I'm thinking, let's use laptop. That looks better. I'll duplicate those because we're going to have probably 3 laptops here. And then I'll make this, once again, a little bigger of a shape because I want to make sure that it fits all of our different icons. And I might move this a little as well. And there we go. Now the last thing I'm going to do is have a couple of WLANs, and I'm going to have one room filled with computers and then a second one. So once again, I will create that shape just by duplicating it, bring it over here, squeeze it up a little bit, maybe make it a little. And if you notice that it's doing something like this, the shape, and it's just not really listening to how you want it to be, what you can always do is insert a different shape. And I always like to just use, if I'm going to use shapes that have some sort of text box, I may just use a text box. But if you wanted to, once again, you can always just go back to basic shapes. And instead of choosing square, you can use rectangle. Whatever way works for you, you're more than welcome to do. Since I know I'm going to be adding a bunch of different icons in here, I'm going to just create a rectangle. Just like that. And then once again, on that rectangle, I'm going to make sure that there's no fill. And I'll do the line to be gray. I'll create a duplicate of that. And then I will just grab these text box. And that Control D, like I said, it's going to help out a lot. So you don't have to constantly resize things. And I'm going to just call this a WLANS, and we'll put 01. I'll duplicate it. And then I'll do 02. And maybe make this a little bit bigger. Next up, I'm going to add, let's say, probably 4 computers here and 4 computers here as well. So I may want to make this a little bigger here. And I'll just add a couple of computers. And for these computers, I will make them a little smaller just so that we can fit them in this box for us. And then I'll do Control D, Control D, Control D, just like this. And all we're doing is building out a scheme for this network design. And I'll create a couple more. And now what I want to do is I want to make sure that there is some sort of access point. So I will put a wireless access point here. And I'll put another wireless access point here as well. Now that we have everything that we need, what I want to do is start to create these connections. So for the secured, what I want to do first is actually bold it and underline it. Same thing here, bold, underline, and bold and underline. Now I'll create those connectors. So I'm going to connect this router to this one. And I'm just going to change this over here just like that. I'm going to connect this router with this one, and then also this router with this one. Now, for this connection, I'm connecting this router with this router with this computer, and you can always just move those over if you don't like where their placement is. And then I'm just going to grab one last one and move it over here. And make sure, once again, you just grab by that box, and there we go. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is create a connection from here to the server box. And once again, you're more than welcome to move these whatever you like. I might want it on a more straight path there. I think that looks good. And I'll just move this over here. Move this one a little bit over here as well. There we go. And the last thing that I'm going to want to do is create some dotted lines to show that this is going to be a wireless connection from this router to these two wireless access points. And to do this, what we can do is create the connection. And I'm going to pull the connection from here to here. And I'm going to do that one more time from here to here. But when you click on the actual lines, when you click on this connection here, I'm going to go to the line. And instead of it being a weight line, I'm actually going to make it a dashed line, just like this. And I'll do that for this one as well. I go to line, and I make it a dashed line. And that just gives us a representation that this is actually a wireless access point. And there we go. We have an awesome now network design, and we can start to create these secured networks. Take a moment, try this out for yourselves, and when we come back, we'll get into some more fun stuff. So here I am back at one of the first diagrams that we created. Now, over here, we've seen that when we select certain templates, like basic flowcharts, you'll see that we get certain stencils, like the basic flowchart shape stencil, cross-functional flowchart shapes, and that's how we were able to build this. But sometimes what we want to do is create an actual shape and then save it to a personal stencil. That way we can use them over and over and over again without having to worry about what kind of formatting we did to it. So the first thing you're going to do is go to More Shapes, and you're going to go to New Stencil, and you'll pick whatever metrics works for you. I'm going to use US units. Now it's going to say Stencil 3, and I can quickly start to drop shapes right here. For instance, I love the way that our start-end shapes are. They're red with a blue lining, and that's something I'm going to want to use in the future. So what I can do is I can click on this shape, duplicate it, and then take this shape that's duplicated and drop it right here. That will now add it to my stencil. Now, of course, it calls it a master point 2, so we can right click and we can actually edit this name. And I'm just going to say start/end. Now we can do the same thing for the rest of them. I could just duplicate, click and drag, and then we can call this one our process. And you can add any types of shapes you want. Even if I go into, let's say, more shapes and I decide to use, I don't know, maybe food and drinks, I can take this shape, put it here. Let's do apple, let's do cake slice, let's do candy, because I know I'm going to use them. Go back to my stencil 3, and then I can just simply add these over here. And there we go. And then you can rename them once again by right-clicking, rename master, and I'll rename them what they are. So while I'm doing that, I'm then thinking, well, it says stencil 3 here. I actually want to rename this one as well. So if you want to do that, you can click save, the little save icon, and you're not going to actually move the location. You're just going to name this what you want. And I'm going to call this Joe's stencil. Once I click save, it's now in the system. So if I do decide to open up a brand new file, I go to File, New, and I open up Basic Diagram. It's actually going to be in More Shapes, and then I could go to My Shapes, and I could see Joe's stencil. So you can use this now forever. This is a great way to easily access shapes that you use all the time. So take a moment, try that out on your own, and when we come back, we're going to get into using hyperlinks and also the process tab. So in our cross-functional flowchart, we actually added a couple things here that can be used for linking. For instance, you'll see here the building pricing plan. And what we're going to want to do is, since it's a subtask, we're going to want to create a whole nother basic flowchart around the building of the pricing plan. We also added in the demo announcements document. So wouldn't it be really nice if we could just click on the shape and it opens up that document in Word? Well, good news, you can do that in Visio. You can connect Excel files, Word files, or even PowerPoint files as well. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create that hyperlink for this document. I'm going to click on the actual shape, and I'm going to go over to the Insert tab. Now inside of the Insert tab, this is where the links command group lives, and that's where the command link lives. Now all you have to do is give that a click, and it's going to populate this dialog box. It's going to say, okay, so we have the address here. Do you want to browse an internet address where you can connect it to some sort of site, maybe your home site? Or do you want to connect this to a local file on your computer? The second option here, sub address, is linking it within the actual file. So right now I have a page 1, and if I click on browse, it will offer me page 1. But I already know what I want to do. I want to browse a local file. It's going to pop up this dialog box, and what we're going to do is access some sort of file. And I'll just use a fake one for today. I'm going to use some fake Word file here. Let's do this one here. Now make sure, good point, right now I'm on Visio files. You're going to want to click on all files so that you see all of them. That's when you can click and then click open, and now it will link you to that document. But if you're on browse and it automatically puts you in Visio files, you're not going to see anything. So you're going to want to click the drop down, all files, and then choose the file you want to connect to. Once you're done, you click OK, and there we go. It is now connected. Now I know it's connected because if you hover over any of these, you just simply get your cursor with 4 arrows. But if I hover over this one, I get a different looking icon here. I get my cursor with a little link. And if you hover over it, it will even display a little text saying, if you hold Control click, you'll follow the link. So if I hold Control and I click this, it's actually going to open up Word. And boom, there it is. It brings me straight here. Pretty amazing. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the Process tab. And this is very similar to Hyperlinks, except this goes into sub-process. For instance, this sub-process for building the pricing plan, I'm going to create a whole nother basic flowchart for this. So to actually access the Process tab, you're going to go over to Process. Now once here, you can either create a link from an existing sub-process, or you can create a new page. Now, I usually use the create new page. So when you click on this, you're going to select the building pricing plan. Make sure it's selected with the sizing bullets. Click on create new, and it is going to create a brand new page down here for the building a pricing plan, which is nice because now I can start to put all this information on here. Now, not only that, but it also creates that link. So if I use Control click, it will bring me to the building of the pricing plan workflow. And there we go, we're on that second page. Now I can rename page 1 if I wanted to, and I'll just double click and I'll just call it Project Alpha. And now we have our 2 sheets, Project Alpha and the building pricing. And this will link straight to that page, and this will link straight to the document. These can be really helpful, especially if you have more than one flowchart for an entire project. Take a moment, try it out for yourselves, and when we come back, we're going to talk about making an organizational chart from an Excel file. To make an organizational chart from an Excel file, the first thing you're going to want to do is build the Excel file in a nice format that will work with Visio. To do this, you're going to open up the Excel file, and you're going to make sure it has 3 things. The first thing has to be the name of the person, who they report to, and also what their position is. The biggest thing out of all of this is the reports to. This makes those connections between the different shapes. So I see here that I am going to be the CEO. I actually don't report to anyone, so you can leave that blank. But then we have Crystal, Willie, and Dana, and they all report to me. Then we have Marco, who reports to Crystal, Danny and April, who report to Marco, and then Lucas, Elsa, Sarah report to Willie, Elizabeth reports to Dana, and then Caroline and Andy report to Elizabeth. So now that I have it like this, all I have to do is in my actual Visio, open up Visio, go over to File, New, and I'm going to search for an org chart. So I'll click into the search, I'll type in organizational chart, or if you see it right here, you could give it a click. Now the thing I'm going to use is not one of these pre-built templates. I'm actually going to use the wizard. And when I use the wizard, it will give me that option to actually pull it from a file or enter it into the wizard. Now I'm going to pull it from an Excel file, so I'll use this first one. And these are the different files you can choose from. I'll then click next. And it's going to ask you, well, where is it stored? Now I'm selecting Excel file and clicking next. And then it's going to ask me where the file is located. So I can browse for this file, find it on my desktop, and choose Excel org chart data or whatever you named it and click open. I'll click next. And the next thing it's going to do is ask me what columns are we going to fill in. Well, the name is going to be the name column I created. Reports to will be the reports to. And if you did have a first name column, you could use that, but that is optional. So I'll leave it at none. I'll then click next. Now it's going to ask me about the columns that our data wants to display. And I want the data file column to be the reports to, but I actually don't want to display who they report to. That's just going to be the connectors. I want it to display the name and the position of the person. I'll click next. It's going to ask me for the data file that you want to add to the org charts. Once again, same thing. I want the shape data to be the name and position. I actually want the connectors to be reports to. So I'll click next. If you had any pictures of all of these employees, you could include the pictures, and it even tells you right here, an example of that would be if you're going to match it, you want to make sure that it has their first name, last name, and it's a .png. But we're going to say that we're not going to include pictures in this org chart, and I'm going to click next. Next up, it's going to ask, what happens if it's too many employees? How do we want to fit this on the entire page? So I'm actually going to have the wizard worry about that for me. And I'll click finish. Once you do that, it builds it out and it looks amazing. Now all we have to do is move some stuff over. You can even change the connection points. And then I'll move this one over a little bit. We'll move this over a little bit. And then once again, I'll change the connection points. And I'm just making it look a little neater here. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here as well. Now you can make this as big as you want it. So I'll just come over here and move. And you'll notice when you move things, it moves them all at once. That's the best part about this hierarchy. And I'm just going to do it so that it's all leveled nicely. I think that looks good. And then next up, we have the head of HR. Once again, I'll move those connectors. That looks good. I might want this in the same place as that. And then once again, we're going to just move this way over here just so we have enough room for all of these other things as well. So right there, I'll move that connector. So you do have to put some work into this, but at the same time, it's looking great. Once again, I'm just going to move all of this over just so I have enough room here. And I'll change this just like that. Maybe bring it down a little bit, bring it down a little bit. So we have some straight lines here. And then last but not least, we're going to move these, make sure that they're all looking great. And there we go. I'm just going to move the connectors, and then we have a beautiful org chart. And there we go. Look at that. Now, of course, I do want to make a connection. If the connection moves, that's okay. You can always go back to home, turn on your connector, and then create a connection from here to this one. And now we have a beautiful org chart. And there we go. So take a moment, try this out on your own. You can use some fake names. Just remember, you have to have the name, the reports to column, and then also the position. We're going to be talking about making a pivot diagram from an Excel file. To do this, the first thing we need to do is make sure that we have our Excel information. Now, what I always like to do is I like to make sure that I have my headers and then the information in here. So all of my months going down, my years, type of ice cream sold, who the salesperson was, what region they sold in, how much they made in sales, and then how much they sold in units. Now, once you have this, you're going to want to make sure to remember what this tab says right here. It says it's the Pivot Table Basics Worksheet tab. So I'm going to exit out of here, open up my Visio again, and I'm going to go to File, New, and which template we're going to use is the Pivot Diagram template. If you don't see it here in this list, you can always search for it in the Search for Online Templates section. Once you search for it and pull it up, you're going to click and click Create. Now, right away, it's going to pop up the data selector, and it's going to ask you where's the data coming from. And you can select it from either Excel or Access or SharePoint or even SQL servers. I'm using Excel, so I'll choose Excel and click Next. It'll then ask me to select the workbook, and I'll click Browse, and I'll choose that file that we just were in, and I'll click Open. It'll then ask me, when I click Next, what worksheet or range do I want to use? I'm going to select that Pivot Table Basics worksheet that I was creating, and it's going to ask you if the first row of the data contains column headers. Mine did, so I'm going to make sure to make that check marked. We'll then click Next. I want to include everything, but you could choose whatever columns and rows you want, and then click Next. Once it's successfully imported, I could click Finished, and now I have all my information here. Now, by default, right now what it's doing, if I zoom in here, is it's giving me the total for the years. I don't want that. I want to see how much did I make in total sales. So I'll deselect this and choose sales. And it shows me we made about 1 million in sales, 1.5. The next thing I'm going to do is start to add some layers here. So I see that we made 1.5 million, but how much did each sales rep contribute to this number? So I can just click on sales, and now I can see the salesperson. Bishop made 531, Pullen made 450, and Watson made 575. If I want to know how much did they make per region they sold in, I can click on region, and then it's going to add the region for Bishop, Central Northwest, for Pullen, Central Northwest, and for Watson, Central Northwest. The last thing I may want to see here is a breakdown of what type of ice cream they sold in each region. So I can click on type. And there we go. For the central region, we sold frozen yogurt, ice cream, and tasty treats. For the north, we sold frozen yogurt, ice cream only. And for the west, we sold frozen yogurt, ice cream, popsicles, and tasty treats. And if I zoom out of this, you'll see we now have this beautiful chart where it gives us a breakdown by the total sales, Bishop's total sales, what he made per region, and then what he sold in each region. We can also change that from sales to units. And then it adds the units on here as well. So if I zoom back in, out of that frozen yogurt, we sold 29,000 units, which gave us that $44,000. So take a moment, create some sort of fake data set that has some data in there, and then you can pull a pivot diagram. Let's say that you want to delete something off of this pivot diagram. For instance, I don't want the type of ice cream anymore. I can always just go back over to type, click the little drop down, and select all. And when I select all, I can press delete on my keyboard, and it gets rid of all those types. After that, I can realign everything by going over to Arrange in the Home tab, going to Align, and auto-align everything. Then I can go to Position and Auto Space and also auto-align everything as well. So it all makes it look nice. Another thing that we can do here in our pivot diagram is make changes to our actual shapes here. For instance, for the regions, I could go over and change them all at once by clicking the drop-down and editing the data graphics. You can change to edit that item. Maybe I don't want it to look like a heading 1, or maybe I want to choose a different color. Maybe I want it to be a time callout or a mobile callout. instead of a heading 1. You can do that. Or, if you wanted to, you can always just click on the central, go over to the fill, and then choose whatever color makes sense. And there we go. So take a moment, have some fun with editing this, and when we come back, we're going to talk about how we can actually share these diagrams. To share a drawing with someone, there's two ways to do it. We can either come to the top right corner here and click on share. And when I click on share, it's going to give me two options. I can either share this on the cloud using my OneDrive, or I can share this in an email as a PDF or as an actual Visio drawing where they can open it up in their Visio application. The same thing to do this is by going to File, Share, and you'll see once again we can either share with OneDrive or an email we could send as an attachment or as a PDF. I hope you got a lot out of this class. Thanks so much for being here and have a great day.